Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Here We Are podcast, another special pandemic edition of the Here We Are podcast. I am talking with a couple of my favorite scientist couple, I might say. They've been on the podcast a couple episodes in the past. They've done stand-up science, and if anything should prove to you that science can be fun, it should be these two. Much of their research is based around arguments that they have in the home and trying to study and prove the other wrong. How much fun is that? We have Joe Goodman and Selin Malkoc are joining us. Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good. How you doing?
Oh, I'm
great to hear from you.
Yeah, interesting. I'm very busy. I'm trying to record as many of these as possible, and and trying to figure out the apocalypse. How are you guys? How are you guys doing over there?
Hanging in there, you know. Two academics working from the same household with two little kids, one requiring homeschooling, and two old au pairs moved into our house. So we are now a household of 7. Trying to make it happen.
Yeah. It's pretty lot of chaos. But I think that's where it is. Everyone's trying to find out a way to make it work, the new situation.
Yeah. So I've kind of been asking people how their research kind of shapes the way that they look at this situation, maybe a little bit differently than others, or how a lot of people are kind of seizing this this as this very abnormal condition in so many ways in at least our modern human history, and to be able to study human behavior and everything else. So what have you guys kind of been thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We study consumer behavior, which is just another word for human behavior. And so this is one of those times when people start doing really weird stuff that makes us go nuts and just ask a lot of questions like, why are people doing that?
Yeah.
And I remember probably like 3 weeks ago now, or maybe 2 weeks ago, and it's like, maybe I'll go stock up on some stuff. I think maybe we might be spending some more time at home. So I go to Costco early in the morning on a Friday. It's usually quiet, and I just walk in. It's like, it's a little bit busier than normal, and I'm like, oh, there's a long line to check out. And I just keep walking back and back and back until I can't find the end of the line. It's like, oh, the world is changing. Just seeing the whole world is changing, and how I was like, okay, I guess I wasn't that smart of a person to try to get to Costco early.
Yeah.
And it's just, and then I start looking at what people are buying and how they did this. And, so for us, it's just a huge lab of human behavior, of how it changes and what motivates us to buy and do things that we wouldn't normally do.
Selin, what's your take so far?
So a lot of what Joe said. I think having two consumer scientists, we constantly are just like, people are like, one of the things that jumped 800% in sales is yeast. I'm like, really?
I didn't see that coming. I went to the store looking for yeast. I couldn't find it. Like, what's going on?
Why? Why are we all baking now? Like, we are out of puzzles. Like, again, I didn't see that coming. I thought there was going to be, people we were watching TV. So I think there's like a lot of interesting things happening in terms of what people are doing with their time now, whether that feels extra or not. And then on the side, I'm also playing with a few ideas about this whole new idea of working from home and the balance of work-life balance that is no longer exists, and the boundaries have altogether disappeared. So I'm trying to understand it a little bit, doing a few studies on that as well.
Oh, that's fascinating. I have so a couple things. One, yeast. That is, I guess it's a nice staple for people that's affordable and lasts for a long time. Or so. Is that just like is that people just Googling best things to have in a bunker, or do you think it's people like
homebrew?
Or is it
no,
people...
well, I guess baking in general is just up. So people don't want to go to the store. They need fresh bread, fresh, eggs and milk. Well, I don't know if like live chicken sales are up.
Yeah.
So they're still going to the store for eggs and milk probably, or they can stock up a little bit. But bread, it doesn't last that long. So people are baking at home. But flour is flying off the shelf. So people are, learning to bake.
Of course, the irony is you need the eggs to be able to bake. So you're already going to the store to buy the eggs. So you might as well buy the bread.
We have yeast.
But
yeah.
But I actually see a lot of friends like looking at Facebook or Instagram and whatnot. People are really getting into baking. They're having like baking show-offs of sorts. It's just like, baking bread at the same time, FaceTiming and trying to make it into a social engagement, which I find to be rather odd, but it seems to be a thing.
Yeah.
Well, and anything that people are cooking now. So baking is a big one, and then bean sales. Like this is a boom for the beans. Bean sales are through the roof. All sorts of beans, lima beans, black beans, garbanzo beans,
chickpeas, black-eyed
yeah,
peas.
and it stores really well. So it's good protein. It's good for the environment too. So that's really nice. It's sustainable. So shout out to that. But people are learning to cook in different ways. And so the things that they wouldn't normally buy, like grocery stores don't have a month's supply of beans on tap because it just wasn't a big seller.
Right.
And now it's up 300%. They sold 3 times as many beans in the last few weeks than they normally would.
Huh. I wonder what's like sitting on the poor Ferrari dealers that are probably a little overstocked.
I always feel bad for the Ferrari owners.
Moment. You do. It's times like this I always find myself worrying about the first.
I think
are they moving their inventory?
Yeah. Picked the wrong week to get a Ferrari dealership.
Yeah, I had I used to live across from David Geffen's summer home and of Geffen Records and in Malibu, and then he's been like
nice.
Posting pictures. He's like, hey, I'm out on my yacht, social distancing, like these real like dickhead pictures, and I'm like, dude, now I know your house is empty. Like, yeah. Not the wisest thing to do. But
I'm not flying commercial, only on my private jet.
In terms of this, I would love to dig into this blur between work and personal life. This is got to be, the biggest time. This is something that I have for many years had to really deal with. I'm someone that doesn't really clock in and out. I have show times, and I need to be to a show at a certain time. And with like stand-up science, which you guys did, I got to show up early and set up and do things, and that makes for a long day. But much of my work is outside of that. It's like in front of the computer, it's emails, it's doing that sort of thing. And I almost touched my face. Whew, that was a close one. I had to, oh my God, it's so hard not to touch your face.
Slap your face every time you do it.
Yeah, I need to just, I think, can you just like take sanitary wipes? This may not be good information. I should ask someone that would know this, and then use those on your face to itch it. I would think that you could. Some face wipes. Get into the face wipe business now.
Face wipe business.
While you can. Woo! Invest in that face wipe business.
That function like wipes.
Yeah.
Anything health, even filtered water is sales are up. What the water? We don't have a water epidemic. What's going on? Anything health related is going to be good.
I mean, I will say that
I sidetracked you.
No. I mean, let's sidetrack away. First off, I find that this is the most ADHD in my lifetime. And I'm just like, I feel at home, like we're all over the place. I'm like,
Squirrel,
oh, I can,
squirrel.
yeah, like I can be your distraction shaman. I've been distracted for 39 years. Let me show you guys how to do it. But I remember driving from LA to New York, or back to Wisconsin, 4-day drive. Thought crossed my mind, what if gas stations start shutting down? Like the way in which when I was driving, the pace of change of like the alerts, the way in which things were every 24 hours, things were escalating so much that I was like, holy shit. And so I'm sure there's just a lot of people that are like, are the public works going to be, are we going to need a 2-week supply or a 3-week supply of water or whatever? I mean, I get the concern, but yeah, it seems like, I guess if you're fortunate enough to have the space for that. But anyway, back to the blurred lines. So I have a big, right now I'm sitting at like a little desk that I have. Oftentimes I find myself working from bed. I'm often in like hotels and Airbnbs, and I just kind of have my computer in bed. And, I've heard of the idea of kind of, there can be this blur just between, having a place to sleep and having a place to work, and kind of the subconscious making things a little blurry. So now I'm like trying to go to sleep at night and I'm in work mode, or I'm trying to work, but I'm feeling sleepy. And that's just like one small example of how lines can get blurred a little bit from my own life. And now everyone is having this, times 100, because I don't have a family. You guys have generations.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have parents, but you have I don't have children, I should say.
Fair.
Or a spouse. You guys have you have 3 generations in a household right now?
Ish.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
My parents were here until last week. So they have their own apartment, but they spend their days here. So we had like 3.5 generations, I suppose. My parents, then us, and then the au pairs that are just like about 10 years younger than us, and then our kids.
Which is, just a fancy word for nannies that live with us.
Yeah.
From Turkey.
Wow.
So who don't really nanny, but yeah.
So how's that impacting your work and home lives so far?
Well, I guess we're kind of experts in it because we're used to, and you're talking to someone, not me, but Selin is one who will commonly work in bed and have her laptop out and work all over the house. Because we're academics, we can do our work anywhere, and so we do actually spend a lot of time working at home and have home offices. So on that regard, it doesn't change, a whole lot. But now I'm thinking about it, maybe that's a whole reflection. You mentioned trying to sleep because you're thinking about work and the same space, and we don't really have those boundaries.
Well, I mean, I find that the biggest change, and that's kind of what I'm trying to study right now, is not that we are at home as a physical space, which definitely contributes to the issue, but it's that others in your life are also in the same household with you. So my kids are at home, my husband is at home, which is such a constant reminder of the opportunity cost of working, right? Normally I go to the office, I sit at my desk, and that's the time to work. As Joe said, we're academics, so there's a little bit of a leeway, but oftentimes at the office I do work, and then I come home, and as long as the kids are awake, we are family time, and then I might switch back to work. Now, I come up here, I hear the kids downstairs. They don't understand that I still work. So they come pop up. And now I'm feeling guilty over working during working hours because of all the social presence around me that's priming me to my other self, like my family self. And I find that to be the most distracting. Like the fact that I feel guilty when I work because I'm not spending time with others in my household. And when I'm spending time with others in my household, I feel guilty for not working. So it's just like, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, just a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
People don't really post that on Facebook too. They're like, these are all the times I wasn't spending with my kid taking cute pictures. Like,
Yeah.
this is me neglecting my children.
That's a very good point. That's hilarious. Yeah, I hope you guys do that. I hope you should start
the
a
real
trend.
Facebook feed.
Yeah.
You losing my
That is
patience.
absolutely hilarious. Yeah, of course. I mean, and it's so hard for kids too. I mean, so much of, I don't know how old are your children?
5 and 9.
5 and 9. Okay, I mean that's pretty young, and then even especially people with like 2 or 3 year olds or something like that. That really there's nothing that
Yeah,
you could
and they need a
say that
lot
they
of
could
attention.
understand.
But they're doing more fun stuff too. It's like I could, like go on a bike ride right now. Oh, yeah, that sounds like a lot more fun than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
They're playing all these fun games, and so yeah, and that's the big difference is that okay, we're working at home, but also the kids are at home too. They're not at school, and that changes the dynamic.
Because I feel like there's both pressures, right? I mean, for certain people, I think working from home, like us, like I feel like people almost expect more from me because they're like, oh, you're not teaching, all your meetings are gone, so you have all the time to do research, be on task. For some others, I feel like there's the other pressure, which even I feel to some extent. It's just like the pressure to be more while being productive, I'm going to call that, like people picking up hobbies, or I hear people just like, oh, having social hours, drinking hours with their friends over Facebook, or they're just making time to bake together. And I'm like, who has time for that? But at the same time, the more I see those, I feel the social pressure to not the work and to nurture my well-being in some ways. Then I feel guilty for not doing that. And wow, like in case of relaxing, maybe a little bit, I'm just like more of a stressful than I was before, if that was ever possible.
So this is, and I think a lot of this ties back to social media as well.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing a study too to kind of look at how not just social media consumption, but all media consumption is affecting social distancing and how that's going to be affecting well-being later on. So we did one. We don't have any results yet, but we did one survey, like one part of the study, and we're going to keep following up with people throughout the US that we're surveying to kind of track to see how much social distancing and how they're using different types of media and isolation to see, because really what we'd expect is that we're social beings. We need to be around people. Otherwise we get depressed. We're just not made to be isolated animals. And so everything says that this should lead to a lot of unhappiness and lower our well-being, even depression. But there's all these tools now that maybe that could help us out, or they could make it worse. I don't know. Everyone likes to point at social media as the negative, but if you use it in the right way, maybe it could be the positive.
Interesting. So I am on a personal level so happy you brought this up. Let me show you where I'm at right now, social media wise. So I kind of took about the last 2.5, 3 years off of social media for the most part. I have an assistant that would post things, or I would tell her what to post. I found it to be unhealthy for me. I have not the best impulse control. I get worked up when I check Twitter, and am reminded of I don't watch the news because I get too
right now,
this is.
Yeah.
Whew.
Let's not get there.
Let it out.
I mean, it's funny because it's the worst time to watch the news, and it's the most necessary time to watch the news at the same time. So anyhow, because of related reasons, I kind of started monitoring. I took all social media apps off my phone. and it's also, I've been trying to eliminate screen time as much from my life, because I just find I'm more productive and creative when I'm not in front of a screen. So even like calling my assistant and dictating an email is like, even though I don't, you know, it's expensive. That's an expensive way to email. It's the productivity of me staying away from a screen, someone that has a hard time regulating their screen use, was worth it for me. And so then what happened was in, you know, as my show Stand Up Science started kind of taking off more, and I was like, I'm not even on Instagram. Instagram's all the rage. I hate doing selfies. I should start doing this thing. I need to start building up this presence. Okay. And I know you guys we've talked about selfie research, I think, in the past, on past episodes. They're taking pictures on vacation and the pros and cons. And so started that in November, reluctantly posting some stuff here and there. And now all of the sudden, live touring done. Okay, quick, I need to establish my digital presence and get what was 90% of my income was live. Now I need to figure out how to I have employees that I pay and everything else. And so now I have to take social media seriously. I don't respond to it the best. I woke up in the middle of the night last night wanting to like see how a tweet of mine did and check the like retweets and likes, and like I'm waking up after 2 hours of sleep and be like, oh, I wonder, should I delete that post? Did it get enough retweets? Should I retweet it again? And man, so the point is, I'm sure a lot of people would love any kind of insight that you have on healthy and unhealthy social media use. And I mean, you know, you don't have the data yet specific to this scenario, but any speculation that you have regarding this particular moment in time?
There's one that you mentioned, you know, Alex Barish at NYU has done some research on this. You talk about taking pictures, whereas like taking pictures can actually be a pretty good thing. And it, on one hand, you kind of think of it as taking pictures takes you away and from the situation, and you can't be in the moment because you're worried about the picture. But what she also finds, and correct me if I'm wrong or add to this, is that it's kind of the goal of why you're taking the picture. And if you're so worried about self projecting and self-presentation, thanks, then that's when it becomes the negative. Like that feeling of I'm hanging on every word that I'm tweeting, and I'm worried about my picture just being perfect, and you're losing kind of the bigger picture here of just cataloging it. Then that's when you run into problems. And like I joke about this Facebook feed of the real, you know, real parenting of you know, not just my perfect kids and my perfect life and how I have all this time to do all my hobbies.
Make sure and take all those imperfect pictures of Selin. I'm sure she'll love that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. It's kind of like living in LA. I mean, you live there, and people, I haven't lived there, but I've spent a lot of time there, and people always joke about it. It's like no one works here. It's kind of hard to work in LA because you look around, it seems like everyone's not necessarily on vacation, but everyone's like out to lunch and getting coffee. And like, is anyone working right now? You know, you go to the beach and it's like there's people that are on the beach. And so, but you don't see the counterfactual. You don't see all the people that are actually working in their offices, because that wouldn't be exciting, and that would be awkward if you just walked into people's offices. I'm just saying if you're here, but it's the same thing. In social media, it gives you a slice of life, but it's not a random slice. It's just that one component, and it's easy to see to get absorbed into it.
So I guess that's the bad side. Right? It's basically, I don't have a lot of friends anymore that posts their life as much, and they mostly post opinions and articles and discussions of what's going on. And that I actually find to be much more productive use of social media. And I think that's the kind of use that we are trying to understand a little bit better in the research that Joe was talking about. You know, I see people talking about a particular, outbreak starting in a city, and they put a graph, and somebody else says, and I've got nerdy friends clearly, and somebody else says, well, that's per million, but you should be looking at it this way, and somebody else does the analysis. And in that world, if you're surrounding yourself with people that is actually using this as a platform to discuss and connect and discuss issues, I think social media can be very productive and helpful. But to the extent that you've got these other friends, and I still have a few, I kind of not unfriended them, but hid them a little, that's showing me, oh, I finished this puzzle in the morning. Now I baked. And by the meantime, I wrote 3 articles. Hey, look at me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, I don't want that in my life, because that's clearly going to make me feel bad. But
yeah,
the problem is, of course, the good comes with the bad. It's not easy to filter everything out and only look at the
right. And so
the
you
good
can
part.
use that, if you're using social media, actually be social. And think about what social is it's an interaction between 2 people or 2 things, or it's usually people. And when social media just becomes a one-way conversation where you're passive and you're just taking in what other people are doing and you're not having a conversation, then I don't think it really has that benefit. But if we're using Zoom and WhatsApp or Instagram to stay connected with people and our loved ones that we couldn't connect with before, then that's using it for a good thing. And that's actually, bringing it back, we're business, marketing professors. And so that's where marketing comes in too, is that, like you're talking about your business, is that, and your career, is that's a way for you to interact at an individual level, on a personal level with your fans. Mm-hmm. Right. And so there, it's a good tool, as opposed to the old way of just blasting stuff out. And you want to see, are people retweeting it? Are they making comments? Because that tells you that you're having an actual conversation. And normally, I know you're paying attention to me because you're looking at my eyes and we have eye contact, and you say something back to me and I say something back to you. That's a normal conversation. We don't get those cues on social media, so we have to look for, oh, are they tweeting back? Are they forwarding it? That's the cues. But pretty soon, it's easy to get addicted to that feedback. And research has shown that it can become like a drug. I mean, you get endorphins, you get it's like, taking a hit of Coke or something, of like, when people will look to see if their tweets and if their postings get forwarded onto other people, and they need that, and they need more and more of it, just like an addict.
Well,
on the good side,
as someone, I mean, I have a very addictive personality, and I don't shy away from a good vice. I don't I don't beat myself up over a vice as much as the guilty pleasures don't make me feel as guilty as they do some people. But then in going back, and I mean, Joe, you kind of got away from this a little bit, but I think Selin, no. I was going to say, I think Selin made maybe the most important point that I've heard so far for my listeners to understand, is that all of my angry political Twitter rants are actually a good thing. Is that what? Is that what? But then Joe countered and screwed everything up, so
you hear what you want to hear.
Yeah, I hear what you want to hear. So this is this is one of the, on a serious note, one of the great things that I see happening right now is everyone's just like reaching out to their old friends, to family they haven't talked to in forever. They're doing these Zooms, they're catching up, they're being a bit more honest. I'm from my upbringing in my small Midwestern town is that you don't complain, you don't share your feelings, you just like work hard and everything, and be positive, and everything's gonna be great all the time. And now people are just like, holy shit. And it's kind of refreshing. It's a little refreshing to hear a bit more authenticity in some of these some of these conversations, and it's nice to see people, reaching out and kind of reestablishing connections and reassessing who it is that they care about, and reprioritizing some things in their lives.
And I think the research idea that Joe was discussing a little while ago really started from observations. Joe, myself, and I think you also had her in the show, Kathleen Voss. We were all like butts upping each other and just like sharing information and blah, blah, blah. And then either Joe or Kathleen said just like, oh my God, like I cannot keep up with my phone. So many different conversations, WhatsApp, I keep on getting information and calls and this and that. And we are like, why are we all doing that? Like, it's not like we wouldn't reach out to any of these people or we wouldn't share things with them, but we are kind of expanding our circle and sharing far more than before. So one idea that we're trying to play with is like,
can I just say quickly, sorry, so I don't cut you off in the middle of this. I just want to say that if Kathleen Voss is having trouble keeping up, there's something very unusual happening for the listeners. That is a hypomanic person that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
just
meant in the best way.
In the best
she
way.
Can juggle it all.
Yeah.
She can
endless energy, endless resources.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that we all settled on and trying to figure out is like this event that's happening to all of us is in some way the social equalizer, right? Moms and dads and kids are in some way, well, except that the parents are sometimes more vulnerable, but just like, on a personal level, me and my neighbor, we might be different in a lot of ways, but at this particular issue, we're equally at risk. Me and my boss, he might be running the school and I might just be a lowly professor there. But now we are all in the same boat trying to basically survive and just do the best with our families and with our lives. So in some level.
Or the janitor or the checkout person, it's just, and I think that's the, we maybe going back to politics, like priming the equality so much in our conversations, the inequality in the world, that this thing is so egalitarian.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I mean, janitors went from.
He was correcting me because I said I'm a lowly professor, and he knew that was going to come up wrong. So
I was like,
I could see his brain going. He's just like, no, don't say that.
But
nothing against janitor. I mean, it's in a very important role. All the janitors that are listening, I mean, it's a great.
That's what I'm saying is like, historically. Really, this was almost like a slur to call it, to be the way in which culturally we talked about janitors,
custodial engineers. Sorry.
But these are people on the front lines of this war. These are now like the heroes protecting all of us, and meanwhile, I'm starting to think maybe my Ferrari dealer isn't as necessary in my life as I once thought that he was. Great guy.
Good, sure.
Great guy.
Good family.
Smooth talker.
No doubt.
So one thing that, as we've been talking, and as you're talking about finding, blurring these lines, one thing that doesn't even, there's just going to be all of these underlying issues that right now people are thinking about the number one priority, and people aren't thinking like, oh, everyone in the world is going to have post-traumatic stress disorder after this, like everybody. And what's that impact on our culture? And then just things like, oh, I got to be home a lot. Well, now I need to start figuring out how to separate my work and my family life. These are things that are, some people still haven't quite, a lot of people are still like, well, this is like a 2-week vacation. And now starting to realize like, oh, this is reality. This is a new way of life. And
well, I mean, to say that it's hard to, I think at first the question was about dealing, work and home and juggling the kids, and it's a real problem. but to some people, it's like, that's a luxury, because
Yeah.
what I'm doing is I'm juggling how to pay the bills and put food on the table because I don't have a job.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really, it's like,
Right.
your problems are, you know,
Right.
great.
Oh,
Great to hear
I
about
mean,
it.
this is going to be the great who has it worse off of mankind. Especially once we really start eating rich people, and then it's gonna be like, geez, I'm not sure the Ferrari dealer deserved that. Yikes. And then we're gonna all quickly be unloading all of our money on everyone else, so they get eaten first.
You've worked this all out.
I've clearly thought all this through. But the point that I wanted to bring up was that new habits and restructuring things can be really difficult. I mean, I think that I am more adapted to it than the average person because I don't have a routine. I don't have a schedule. I'm in 3 cities a week. My only constant in my life is change. Many people in this have been working the same 9 to 5 job and keeping the exact same routine for a long time, and now you're sitting at home. Okay, I want to build this new habit of separating work and family. Okay, now I need sunlight, so how do I make sure that I'm getting outside? Do I schedule that in? Okay, I guess I got to start meditating now because chronic stress is bad for the immune system, and I can't have a weak immune system right now. So if I stress, I die. And it's just like all of the new things that I mean, everyone's just getting the rug pulled out from under their lives. And for some people, this is like a much needed break, and this is like people are getting caught up on some sleep deficits that they've had for a very long time. But for the majority of people, this is traumatic. So how are people going to manage this change and start trying to build new routines and new structures in their life? I know this isn't necessarily, I know you guys are consumer behaviorists.
No, I'll let Selin, because Selin does the work on scheduling and how people manage their time and things like that.
Yeah, and I think I already talked in your show and at least once about this, the idea that I don't believe in scheduling, and I think that it's in some ways too restricting and is quote unquote an evil in some ways of the modern lives.
It's Mediterranean.
First off, it's scheduling is anti-nap, and anything that is anti-nap is evil.
You can't schedule a nap.
Unless you schedule your nap, right?
I guess you can't. No, I mean you could schedule a nap, but
it's always accidental.
Nap when
is it even fun if you schedule it, right?
Yeah, then you're putting a lot of pressure on that nap. That's some pretty heavy duty expectations on that nap. Napping when you need and feel like a nap is a great luxury that I've often had through my career. I often work. I often work very long. It's not unusual at all for me to work 12 hours in a day, but I also at the same time have a very flexible schedule in terms of when I feel like working and whatnot. So anyway.
Well, I mean, the evil that I talk is really that evil that you're mentioning, by the way. It's this, when scheduling gets in the way of natural flow of things, that just kind of interrupts a lot. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, I think in this new world, it is necessary to establish, I'm not going to call it schedule, but it's necessary to establish some form of a routine, because unless you put the routine in, you cannot turn that into a habit. And we know a lot from the habit research that it's actually best formed in unusual circumstances, when everything is new and everything is out of place, and when you have an intention and routine to actually make that really happen. So this is a good time to actually set a few new routines out there. And indeed, in the study that I mentioned about how people are coping with this, we're trying to isolate the people who are intentionally realizing that you can neither keep your old routine nor be flexible. none of those is going to work. But those who actually will actively set a new, more realistic, more up to the new normal kind of a routine will be the ones that's going to come out on top from this, and in terms of their productivity, but also with their well-being and happiness and all sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, I started I've gone on and off, but I started smoking cigarettes again last summer like a moron, and
No.
I know, and like 2 weeks ago, finally, when I was just like, I was starting to get paranoid, and I was like, well, this is an awful time to have a smoker's cough, and I was just like, enough is enough. And I quit. It's been over 2 weeks, and I've quit for like years at a time, so I know I'm in the clear for at least a couple 2-3 years until I'm like, yeah, I could probably have one. I think I could have one. I'll do that again in 2 or 3 years, and that will be another nightmare. But the point is that, you know, there are ways of looking at this thing as of like, you know, just in terms of quitting smoking alone. I might look back at this as like, hey, Corona actually extended my life because I quit smoking, and if I want to quit smoking, it scared me straight.
Scared the shit out of my cigarettes.
Yeah, and so now I have 20 more years to live because of the new habit that I formed at this time. So that's an interesting take, that this might be just because of the shakeup of people, it might be giving people a opportunity for a fresh start.
Yeah, I'm preaching it. I'm not succeeding it.
Yeah.
I've been trying to form my new routine for the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I feel like I make progress, I fall back on.
Yeah.
But
no, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to motivate people. You're supposed to be like, I was down and out.
Remember that the real parenting feed, we're kind of still doing that.
Yeah. You're supposed to give the hero's journey.
But I think the reality is, it's a lot of the times it's the same thing with the internet and social media. Like when things look easy to achieve, that's when they're the least motivating in some ways, because you try and it just seems so far away that you basically lose all your motivation and give up. So I think it's important for everyone to realize that, like, this is not easy. This is going to be hard on everyone, even the people who actually study time management like me. And it just takes a lot of conscious effort to be able to sit down and establish a new routine that's realistic, and also have the flexibility to keep on tinkering it until you find a way that works for you.
And I think that's the balance, is that, because and we have this in our relationship, is that Selin's constantly that let's not schedule it, let's just see what happens. And actually, on a couple of our trips that were planned, we didn't schedule it, so it turned out really well that we never got around to booking.
We don't have to cancel that trip to Barcelona anymore because we never booked
the tickets yet.
Yeah.
But so one time you were right and paid off. But okay, maybe.
See, when I told my listeners, did I tell you guys these two are fun?
So, but you know, and
this is I think I've interviewed or between my podcast and Stand Up Science, I probably worked with like 500 scientists now. I think you two are the only two scientist couples that are openly disagreeing about things. Publicly disagreeing.
Yeah, all of our projects have started as disagreements, and that's probably the scheduling thing is this balance of, on one hand, Selin is this believer that to keep rough schedule is okay, but to keep that flexibility, keep it open, and just kind of let it happen. Because if you, as you said, the best naps are the ones that are unplanned and your body just naps when it needs to.
Yeah.
Not because you tell yourself cognitively, I need to go nap right now because I have 45 minutes between 4 and 4:45. It's just not going to work. But on the other hand, our bodies and our lives do a lot better when we have habits. And that's why we get addicted to smoking, because it's a habit. So we can get addicted to bad things, but we can also have really good habits.
Mm-hmm.
And those routines, and those kids love that. And that's what kids do really well, when they have routines and they know it's coming and they have the habit. And You don't need to say, oh, am I going to go exercise today? You just know automatically at 8 a.m. I'm going to exercise because that's what I do every day. That's when I meditate. And so we can also use habits and routines as a way to get us to do good things.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you have to have some flexibility in your life to, to, as they say, stop and smell the roses and the experiences, the new experiences that you're having now, because everything is changing so much.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this is one thing that I've been doing a really good job of as I've been kind of trying to do as many of these as possible, and I have a zillion other projects going on, trying to trying to figure out this new what my career is now. And now that there's not going to be live entertainment until about August or so, probably. But I've been scheduling, say, take for example, these podcasts and some like web series stuff and other things, scheduling them and leaving enough space in between. So I have like this flex time where I'm still doing something positive. So at that time, I'm like, oh, I can nap at this time if I'm tired between podcasts, or I can finish my emails then. But so I have this kind of, these scheduled breaks of like flexible time where I can still be productive, but I can still rest. And for someone that's spent 16 years without trying to figure out how to have a scheduled but flexible life, that's kind of what I've stumbled upon working for me. I'm by no means perfect. I still need, I'm doing everything
you're pretty
else.
Close to perfect. Pretty close. I mean, the smoking thing, you had me there, but now you fix that.
Yeah, I'm crushing a lot of things right now, but exercise is my next one. It's not, I'm not getting outdoors enough because I'm a wimp and I'm in Wisconsin and it's cold, and I'm not exercising enough. So those are my next two things to check off. But other than that, I've been managing this pretty well.
You and I, brother. I never liked exercising for the sake of exercising, unless I can make it fun, and there isn't many ways to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the research would say pick a achievable goal, not a high goal, right? That's the big thing about creating routines. Like, I think if people are starting saying like, every day I'm going to run for 30 minutes, that's going to fail before you start. But if you can say, you know what, twice a week, and I'm going to decide that to be Tuesday and Friday, I'm actually going to take 1 hour to walk in the mornings. That is a far better way to start. And then once you start to get comfortable with that, it's much easier to add on to it, either to make, exercise harder or just make it more frequent.
I want to do, like the documentary Super Size Me. I want to do that, but with goal setting, where like for the first 30 days or something, I'm just going to, every day I'm going to set myself up for disappointment. I'm just going to each day I'm going to wake up and think of an exceptionally unrealistic goal and just see how that sits with me at the end of the day. And then the following 30 days, I'll try these small incremental gains. And
like what? Like you say, like today I'm gonna go run a marathon today and just see how that works out.
That goes. And then I don't even get out of the house. Like, I can't do anything right. That's just if
you end up, and then you always end up at McDonald's at the end.
Yeah, I end up at McDonald's. But I really. The idea of kind of these small incremental gains is something that I sometimes talk about on stage. It's something that's been a big impact on my life, and I try to think about and implement more than I actually do. But man, way too many of us. This is why New Year's resolutions don't work very well for folks, is because it's like, okay, on this day, I'm gonna do all
When
the
I'm-
things correctly.
When I'm really hungover and I
When
can't even
I'm
remember what I told
hungover.
myself, that's gonna be the day, man.
That's the day I run the marathon. So what are some small steps in terms of setting some of those smaller realistic, so you kind of want, if I can remember from kind of talking about this on past episodes, kind of the smaller, achievable, measurable, and what's
Still
a couple other
challenging.
still
Yeah,
It still needs to be challenging. It has to be out of your comfort zone simultaneously.
I did start this. There's this app. I'm not endorsing them. It hasn't been the most effective thing in the world for me, but I like the idea of it. It's called Fabulous and Motivate Me or something like that. And the idea is that it's like starting with really small things. It's on an app and you check it each day. So like the first 3 days are like drink a big glass of water the first thing in the morning each day, and then you hit a check mark, and then it's like, it's meant to be an easy thing like that to reinforce that you're kind of getting some traction. And then the next thing is like eat a healthy breakfast, so like no pancakes, have some protein, some things like that. And then so now you're checking off the water and the protein, and you do a few days like that. And then it's like, okay, 7 minutes of exercise in the morning. And I haven't
Gotten there yet.
I've been hitting the old snooze button on
Maybe
that
tomorrow.
one. but I love the idea of it for sure.
Well, my dad exercises at home by walking the corridors. Like he literally walks
In
up
an
and
apartment.
down in their apartment. He literally walks in circles.
that's the you mean the insane asylum aerobics
Yes,
course that was popularized by Charles Manson, I believe.
Yeah. Instead of walking the wall, you walk your living room over and over.
Just keep circling it.
Yeah.
Yes, our dog does that in the backyard too.
What other wonderful health tips can we learn from the psych ward? There's a lot of art projects. Get into art projects. But I think the point that you're trying to make, excuse me for being a comedian, is that there are kind of no matter what your situation is, there are ways in which you can do small things to make improvements in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and taking those small steps at a time is a big part of it. And I think what also it is that we always, my big thing is that a lot of this stuff where we talk about happiness, because I study happiness and well-being and self-help stuff, is that there's no one size fits all thing. It's not like this is what you should go do and go do it all. It's like even with diets, like one diet works for me, it doesn't work. It makes you fat, makes somebody else hungry. It gives somebody else a heart attack. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like we're different people. We know this. We just have a fancy word called heterogeneity. It's just that people are different. Like some people like to live in the city. Some people like to live in Wisconsin. I'm from Iowa. We wouldn't want to live in Wisconsin, but some people like big cars. Some people like small cars. And so we all have different needs and different things that we like. And that's good. Otherwise, everyone would want to live in the city. And so it makes it more affordable for me. So that, just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. And you just got to find your own way. And that makes it better because then we're not all eating the same thing or buying the same thing so you can still have your Ferrari.
Well, this is awkward because I was going to ask you to redo the 10 Commandments and chisel some universals in stone for all of humanity, but okay, if we gotta be flexible,
scratch that
question, I guess. So what if the tricky thing is, this is again from a personal level, this is like, I'm very fascinated by the lies that I tell myself. I'm great at lying, and I'm very gullible. And so I am just like so good at lying to myself. And it's sometimes I catch myself doing it, and I'm like, wow, like, I really believed that was my motivation for that behavior. Incredible.
It's healthy too. Made you happy. Like it worked.
Yeah. But within that, there is this like, there are universals that work pretty well. Like I'd say, like everyone could probably benefit from drinking water in the morning
And going for a walk.
But then there's so many individuals. Just did an episode on sleep. Oh, you guys know Zlatan, right? Or not? Zlatan Krishan?
No, not familiar.
Never mind. It must have been, I think it was Kathleen that suggested him to me, and thus the association. Anyhow, he's a sleep researcher, and we had a big discussion on this. There's like these things that work fairly well for a lot of people, like say napping, for improves creativity and retention, blah blah blah. For your average person, not everyone's going to be a napper, but how do you then see? Then I find myself going like, well, there are some like good general practices, but individual differences, I need a whiskey right now.
Yeah, right. So now you come up with your own.
Like
in a little bit of lying to yourself and everyone else.
Yeah.
You can make it all work.
So
it's a tricky one, right? I mean, I think when Joe says we're all different, we have to find what works. It doesn't mean stop striving to be better. It just means be flexible on what might be the best thing to do.
And it doesn't mean also that science doesn't work either. Like everything's a probability. Like you could smoke your whole life and not live to be 110. You could be. It's that the problem is it's just a probability. It's a really high probability. It's like 30%. Chance. But that and so you could lie to yourself and be like, no, I'm that person that lives to 105 and smokes. And
first off, that's a real bummer because half of us smokers are trying to die early. That's why we're doing it. Like, oh no,
but you're lying to
30% more chance.
What else can I do? Where's some asbestos?
I'm a cup of pessimism is half empty type of guy, or whatever I'm trying to say there. So what are some very what are some very, very basic small things at this time that you think probabilistically the highest number of people could benefit from implementing that would be realistic?
Well,
you're not going to like my answer, but it kind of depends on at what life you're living right now. Like if you're unemployed and you're struggling and you don't have much to do in your life, the advice would be different than if you still have a job and everything is a bit more hectic right now. So I think it still depends on what is it that you need more in your life and finding a way to squeeze that in. Because if you're basically at a point in which you don't have a job and you're stressed about it, I would tell you to go try to get a skill. Right? Find something that you enjoy to do and find a way to get better at it. So at least when the time is over, you feel like you achieved something, even if it's not money. You felt like you added something to yourself.
Yeah, and
gosh, you might as well be my parents talking to me right now. I get it. I don't have a real job. I get it. My little internet skits aren't gonna work out. Okay.
Keep telling your jokes.
I was talking about making puzzles. Like make more puzzles.
But we do know from happiness research what makes people happy. Like all these things on the edge, just kind of like tweak happiness. But yeah, if you don't have a job, it's one of the hardest things and demoralizing places to be at. And so, yeah, getting educated, keeping your skills up. And luckily right now there's so many online courses, and there's ways to continue to do that, to build your skills. And, we're going to see a lot of people go back to school. Graduate programs admissions spike during recessions because people are out of jobs, so they go back to school. And so that's a good place, and you can stay up to date on the latest things. And people haven't been going back to school in nearly as higher rates in the past 10 years because the economy's doing great.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta quit my job and give up a really good income.
I mean, one of the most fortunate things is a relationship I built last year was with a organization called the Great Courses, the greatcoursesplus.com. That has a bunch of lecture series.
Yeah.
You can go to offer code here we are to get some sort of discount, or that I don't quite remember. But the point is not just that, but there's so many different organizations out there. I've been taking online courses for years and years and years now, and I don't have a formal college education, but I'm able to hold a conversation with scientists in a number of fields because I've been able to educate myself online for either free or very inexpensively. And this is an opportunity that I think people haven't taken advantage of yet, and now is the time. Sorry for the shameless plug. I don't care what organization you use, but man, if ever there was a time to spark people.
We're employed by major educational institutions, so it is a shameless plug that we would say that. But I mean, it's because we believe in it. But it's also shown to increase happiness. So that's what I would I agree with that, is the education part. And to answer your question to me as well, is my research is we focus on the happiness from purchases and material and experiential purchases, and how those lead to more or less happiness. And we find again that experiential purchases lead to more happiness than buying material things. And but the caveat to all that is that, or kind of the hidden secret is that you don't even need to purchase experiences a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And the reason, what we're finding more and more, and a recent meta-analysis is that the reason that experiences are leading to more happiness is because they tend to be social, and they lead to relatedness or social connections with other people. And they kind of tell me a little bit about myself, and they allow me to explore that social relationship with other people. And so going on a bike ride, or going on a walk, going on a hike, you can still do a lot of those things in most cities in the world, and it's going to be good for you, and it's actually going to increase your happiness. And
and what a time to have an experience. Holy crap.
We're getting a lot of them.
You could walk, you can walk down Times Square right now and have your own Vanilla Sky moment. I mean, incredible. You will never forget that. I mean, let's assume that
they don't arrest you. I don't know. Will they?
I don't know what they might arrest you, but the point is
that could be an experience.
The point is that can be getting arrested can be an experience.
Finally, I get my own cell.
I think cops are less likely to run the risk of touching someone and actually putting handcuffs on you these days. So you might also be able to get away with a little more. But the point is, my drive from LA to Wisconsin was very unsettling and creepy, because the roads were just completely empty the whole time. But at the same time, I will never forget it the rest of my life. And it was some of the most beautiful drives that I've ever had. And there's never been a better time to take in nature for people, and maybe start building those. So there's so many adults that have maybe never gone for a hike in their adult life, and might be able to discover the joy of it, and maybe make it a regular routine for even when things go back to whatever the new normal is going to be.
Well, I'm going to sidetrack for a second, but I have a thought about, people not driving and not being on the streets. I feel like if you believe in the big justice of the universe and that, we have been screwing the world so much over the last 100 years, that this is some form of a payback to human beings, that kind of makes sense, because it looks like we are finally making the earth breathe again by not driving and not having the planes and not polluting everywhere. You look at pictures of Venice and dolphins have emerged there, right? I mean, literally,
and shutting down factories.
Like these are bad things in some way, but I think we are finally giving an earth a break. And I like to think that that's like a little bit of a silver lining. That's not that unimportant.
Yeah, I mean, I think evolution for any species is, a real rodeo, and that 8 seconds that you get, you're like, this is going great,
until it's not.
but every species gets bucked off at some point. So it's important to be mindful of that in terms of taking things for granted and letting our ego think that everything's just going to be okay, and that humans are just going to be able to do whatever the hell that we want to all of the time, and like, maybe I'll try riding this thing with my hands off. And so I mean, there's hopefully a lot of good personal and cultural habits that will come from all of this. And my hope is that people are going to start giving a shit about science. That'd be amazing.
Yay, science!
It might be
really. Should we have people believe in that again?
It would be incredible if it happened. If there's ever going to be a moment for science to get the public's attention, this is the time. So thank you guys both for joining me on the show and giving me your time away from your busy family and life and
well, thanks for having us, and thanks for always being a big promoter of science. I think that's a good way to say it, to end it.
My pleasure. I couldn't stop doing it if I wanted to. Love what you guys do. So thank you very much. And I appreciate you both, and hope to talk in person next time.
Hopefully.
Are we?
Yes.
Where are we?
Here.
Why are we here? Not entirely clear. We are misfits thrust into existence by random chance, with no hints at all as to how we're supposed to make sense of it all. It's immensely bizarre. Here we